All right, Josh. Thanks for coming on. I know we talk kind of weekly, but we haven't really, you know, told what's going on publicly over with the Bluegrass Cup and everything going on. So, thanks for coming on, and we can get this kind of getting out there. I haven't done a one-on-one in quite some time, so hopefully you're to get the ball rolling. I can have some more, start getting back into that. So,
Yeah.
you know, first I want to talk about in a sense, you left off with the Bluegrass Cup, the Enduro. That was kind of end of the season type thing. You know, how did that go for you, and what did you learn from it going into 2023?
Yeah. So Sugar Camp Enduro was the last mountain bike race of 2022 that my company hosted. It was a great success. I mean, it was small as far as numbers go compared to a lot, but it was the first time I was there, and we had some factors with flood displacement, and like we wanted to keep this size small because of some things going on in Eastern Kentucky and various things like that. But man, it was a blast. We had smooth as far as the race director standpoint goes. Things went well. Only one hiccup with the shuttle vehicle going down, but the city had a backup plan and that worked as well as probably the normal vehicle would have worked. Um, the racing was good. A lot of people that was the first time they had raced an enduro, so they learned to love it really quick. The courses were good. Introduced a lot of people to Eastern Kentucky mountain biking, and the list could go on. So into 2023, and what we learned from that is we're hosting 2 enduros this year, and hopes for 2024 to be at least 3, and grow a few more throughout the state as there's trails that are becoming available to like really host a good enduro race. One of the biggest things that we learned with the Sugar Camp Enduro was kind of how that I guess the general demographic of Kentucky racers approach the enduro versus how they will approach the XC racing. You see a lot more community focus in the broader sense with the enduro participations. You'll see a lot more like groups going to practice the course, or groups like kind of getting involved as like a team more than actual XC racing, which is kind of like backwards from what you would expect. You do have your NICA teams and like your dedicated cross country teams that are participating in cross country events that way. But for enduro, you've got like, let's say me, you, and 4 of our buddies, Justin, and like we all get so stoked on this one weekend of racing, and we're all going to train together and we're traveling there to practice. And so it's kind of like a turning, I feel like, in like the history of what Kentucky mountain bike racing is. And now the enduro, which is, let's say that's probably 15 years old as far as the sport goes in, the U.S. is being competitive and having chip times and, a podium and so on. I think it's becoming the forefront of what a lot of racing is desired by the group of, the general mountain bike population now, which is exciting because I love it.
Yeah. Did you have any people who were XC style and did the that enduro race, and did you hear their outcome or what they thought of it?
Yeah. I mean, they killed stage 1 because it was 7 minutes long. There's some pedal bits in it. And then stage 2 was straight down and you took like 3 cranks the whole run. But yeah, we have a lot of overlap with guys that are racing, guys and girls that are racing XC, but also racing enduro. I don't know if any of those folks prioritize enduro over XC, or I'm sorry, I said that backwards. Prioritize XC over enduro for this event. But I do think we have some coming up for the Duffield Enduro that their main focus and what they usually race most weekends is some kind of endurance event, and enduro is like their new thing. Versus we have the opposite of that at Sugar Camp. And if you don't know Sugar Camp is a more technical trail system. Like you've got to have a 150 bike to run it. You don't have to, but a lot of people, that's why they're going to try to race on there. And I think that's a little bit of that variable there from the XC crowd. So the XC crowd, maybe they don't want to put their feet in that and get too wet with that yet. But, Duffield's a lot more attainable, and we've got a couple trails there that'll be like, oh, this is pretty rough, but they're like the craziest roughness at Duffield's not as crazy rough as a few things at Sugar Camp. It's still another notch on the belt, kind of.
Yeah, Sugar Camp was fun. And going back to what you said, how like the community I remember I don't even know what run I was like kind of testing the day before the race, just kind of get my feet wet. And I stopped. I saw these guys stop. They're like, "Hey, we're just kind of looking at this section," and we all kind of looked at it together. And then they're like, "Hey, let's go to the next section." Like, I didn't know these guys; they didn't know me, but we went down our run together and saw obstacles, and we kind of gave our thoughts together, which was super cool.
Yeah, I think an enduro race or a shuttle weekend or anything like this where you're doing that, where you're playing the stop and go and learning a course is a great way to make friends because it's like, you pull up, like, let's say you're out before a rock garden, you're like a technical section, and you're like, oh, that guy looks like he knows how to ride, right? And you're like, I want to see him drop in. So you wait there and you see that guy drop in front of you and like see if he's a squid or see if they like know a good line and how they do. And then like, let's say they know how to ride a good line, and then you ride through and then you pull off at a next section and you're like, all right, I don't want to follow this guy. And then you either know who your competition is, or you maybe made a riding buddy that like, you're like, oh, I can ride with this guy. Let's go get some laps together, or maybe both. And I think enduro is like a really good opportunity of that to happen. Because there's a lot that can go on during an enduro race. A downhill run, it's like every single microsecond counts, and like there's a lot of like, I'm not going to show this dude my stuff. And in an enduro race, it's like, well, I've got 4 or 5, 6 stages of this timed run. There's so many variables, and it's a little bit more relaxed for local racing like this. EWS, it's a whole different story, but for this environment, I think it really opens the doors to like, let the greater mountain bike community like meet and greet kind of.
Yeah, and I will say Prestonburg, that whole area is just beautiful. It was fall, so that kind of like obviously fall colors. But there's a lake there. You could rent a houseboat. You could rent a houseboat and ride bikes on all one weekend. So like, what a cool like just area in general.
Oh yeah, I'm on Zillow all the time looking for a spot over there to like, be like, oh, I'm gonna, have to have a little weekend getaway spot because it really is pretty sick. The bottom of the mountain ends at the lake, the top of the mountain's got view for miles. Like it's what you want for mountain biking.
Yeah, I don't, in a general sense, I don't know how many people get past the gorge, Red River Gorge, but once you get past that, and you got, Prestonburg's not too much further, and you're just like, man, this whole side of the Kentucky is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, not to hate on the gorge, but there's some cool stuff there, but there's a lot of nice stuff further east of that, and south of that, and there's not as many people. It's not as disturbed. It's not as blown out from all the overuse that it gets, and there's a lot more community. Like, there's not a lot of community in the gorge aside from like Miguel's and the climbers and stuff like that. But like, Slate, Kentucky's like barely a town. It's an exit when it's a town, but Prestonsburg, like you can roll into a local deli or something and have the small chat of yeah, I'm in town to ride mountain bikes for the weekend, and they're gonna talk to you and like tell you all kinds of cool stuff and how much they love it, or if they go up there and go to the overlook, and you just get like an awesome sense of appreciation that the whole community has for what's going up on that mountain. And I think as mountain bikers, that means something because it's not always been that way for mountain bikers and trails and this kind of tourism. So it's a good spot to be if you've not been there.
I'll keep on the racing thing. When you're laying the course out, how do you? Okay, because there's one section, I forget what it's called. I think it was at stage 3 where it was like more of a like aggressive rock line, but you guys went, I wouldn't say more mellow, but it was more fun. How do you choose to where it's like make sure not too gnarly, but you want to make sure you're kind of still on your toes? You know what I'm talking about, where it kind of split there on 3?
Yeah. So it was like a right hand sweeping turn. It's like a rock drop on the inside that's kind of tight, and it's like a really hard tight ride at the bottom where you could kind of go high and round out the corner.
Yeah.
So the high round out the corner, unless something changed to the race round and I didn't see it, that was definitely the line to just like keep that momentum, because the inside line is pretty tight to like keep a roll going out of that. So when setting up a course, there's a few factors. Like, first off, like, we can try to make it safe, but the reality is you're still riding your bike through the woods, and there's rocks, and rocks are hard, and trees don't move. So, we can move this and move that and make it a little bit safer and like get some of those things that are mildly dangerous in a race scenario out of the question, or, a little bit more mediated. But it's still a race course in the woods. So there's, you can't make it bulletproof and you can't make it like padded all the way down, right? There are things like, this log is pretty close to the edge of the trail. Someone might clip a pedal on it. Let's try to cut that back. As a line may get like blown out over the race weekend and closer to that, let's just save someone's race weekend and their race run from, this small thing. It doesn't really change the challenge of the race and the bigger picture. One of the biggest things that I have communities reach out to me, and like the trail stewards reach out to me and be like, hey, I think this is great. I think we should do this. This is the idea I have for a race in mind. And a lot of times I have to like nip it in the bud with some things because it's like, oh, these trails are intersecting. I was like, that's a whole nother level of complication and danger that we're coming up on for a race day or even practice day. We can have a marshal during the race, but during practice, you're going to have a marshal out there for 2 days leading up to it. Like those are some logistical things that can create a dangerous situation if you're not, on top of that. And then there's always the question of like, what is too dangerous for this environment of racing? It's like, what is too dangerous for a World Cup is way different than what is too dangerous for, a local mountain bike race in Eastern Kentucky. So we may flag something differently. We may put like some red netting that I have like along a berm, and it's not going to catch you. Like it might catch you a little bit, but it's more or less, it's just like, oh, this big red netting's there, and you're going to like hyper focus on the trail and like know something's up and not let yourself be a little less focused because that's a different thing that catches your attention. Another thing that like a lot of local trail stewards and stuff, maybe they're not racers, maybe they're great trail builders, maybe they're riders too, but maybe they just don't race a lot, and maybe they're kind of, they just don't know how fast like the pro guys are, and they don't consider like, their riding speed through here is great for this turn. Like, the sharpness and the angle and everything's great, but then you got the dude that's going to win pro coming through here, and there's no way in hell they're going to make that turn kind of thing. And then it's just like, that's, a bad situation in a trail, or it could even be dangerous depending on where it's at. So those are the things that, we vet out, and just, it's March 16th when we're filming this, right? So, Monday and Tuesday of this week, I was in, Prestonsburg scoping out some stuff there, and I was in Hazard scoping out some stuff there for what we're going to do for, this year's races in those two locations. And a lot of it is, we could do this, but like, that's too hard of a climb, or that's too technical for the beginners for the cross country. I rode a new trail at Prestonsburg that they've been working on, and it is sick, and I can't wait for it. It's going to be one of the best stages this year. And there's not really anything on that trail at this point that's like, this is going to have to get addressed because it's a new trail, and there's, new construction things that will, change over time. But as far as like dangers and crisscrossing and stuff like that, those guys kind of know like the direction and the idea of what to build and how to build it. So, there's no like, work that we have to do in addition for stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's
a lot more into it than I think what people think. I think I'll just even say for me, like, you think, oh, we'll just tape this off. We'll take this off. We're almost good to go. But I think, like you said, I mean, you're already scouting trail for a race that's in October, fall. Yeah. So it's like, it's an ordeal. You want to make sure everyone has fun. You don't want the pros to be like, well, that was kind of almost watered down. You want to make sure they like it, but also at the same time, you want the people who are getting into it have the same feeling. So that's a lot to take on in a sense of you got to satisfy a lot of people.
Yeah. And there's some things that we do too. And, I've still got to do some of this at Delfield, and it's like plucking roots. If you can get your foot under a root, I usually cut those out. That's a danger thing. It doesn't add any difficulty. It's just one of those sketchy things that you don't necessarily want. It's like banjo string roots flopping on the ground. So we'll go through and cut as many of those as we see prior to the race out. We'll trim limbs that, could be low for a tall rider out, and things like that. But yeah, a lot of people do not realize how much we're thinking about it. Me and Ben Brahman, the trail builder at Perry County Park, we spent a whole day scouting the trails because we have to move the race location parking lot from where it was last year to just down the street, which has access to trails, but it's complicated because, dude, Hazard's steep. These mountains are like, they're like hard to walk up. They're so steep. And so it's just not like, oh, let's just go rake and ride this to go connect up to this trail. It's like, he's going to spend a week on the machine making a connection here, and then a week or two on the machine making a connection there just so we can make a loop to where it's not crisscrossing and gets us up into the trail system. Our other parking lot that we used has now got campers in it from flood displacement, and there's just no room, or, it's really, it's one of those things. It's like we can't move them, and we're not going to just come in and ruin their day in the middle of like what their home is now at this park. So we're moving down the road and we're figuring out how to make it happen. And these are the things we got to think of, and what, the off season kind of that, you guys don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
You just get to enjoy a good race.
So with that, just the race, or since the race, as weekend riding, now I know Sugar Camp doesn't really have shuttles every weekend, but has more riders now starting to get there more? Is it starting to grow more?
Yeah, so that's one of the coolest things, and that's like it's the thing that like makes my heart happy when I see it like after the race. Now that sounds dumb, but like the goal of this is I'm putting races in places that I want to see people come ride and enjoy. And how to, know success of that is if you're going there when there's not a race happening. And we see that at Sugar Camp. It's been a little bit less throughout this winter because it's been pretty cold sometimes, and then we've had a lot of like windstorms and random stuff, and that pushes people away. And then, the other thing is we have the Enduro at Duffield, which is closer to Lexington and Louisville than Sugar Camp. So we've seen a lot of people going to Duffield and prep for the race coming up here in a week and a half. And that's cool because, at the same time, it's like, then they'll go to Sugar Camp over the summer to practice for October. But right now, everyone's going to Duffield to practice for this race here at the end of March. And, getting folks on trails is the thing that your mayor wants. It's the thing your tourism offices want. It's what the local restaurants and hotels want. It helps create viability for these trail systems in these towns because, when we drive to, let's say, Sugar Camp, and we have to fill our car up because it's a long way out there, we're probably going to eat a meal or two. We might even stay a night. That's tax dollars. It might be like $10 worth of tax at the end of the day after you like put it on all the, checklist items that happen. But when 100 people do that, it all starts to add up. And if it's happening every weekend and stuff, it all starts to add up, and it adds so much to, what these towns can do as far as developing trails. So, the fact that we're going to these towns that we love right now, we're going to love them even more in 10 years if we keep going to them. Because they're not, these towns are not dumb. They see the value in this. It's starting to come full circle. They're realizing that, hey, mountain bikers, for the most part, have disposable income. They're willing to travel. They're willing to experience the community and do this often. It's what they do on the weekends. So I think the ball's kind of in our court as a community to like, just keep supporting these trail systems and traveling to them on the weekend and getting to enjoy the races when, they come around every year.
Yeah. Yeah. Sugar Camp is, I love every bit of it. Trails are fun. Variety, keeps you on your toes. And hopefully down the road to get, a weekend shuttle service or something continually.
Yeah.
It'd be rough.
There's good things in the work. Just, don't hold your breath for it to happen like in the next 2 weeks or so, but things in the works to where it's very actively being like, planned out and things thought about. Community like there in Prestonsburg, like getting something figured out for more shuttles to be happening. And I'm very excited for all that. I would go over there and do shuttles every day if I had the opportunity. I mean, it's where you want to be.
Yeah, so I'll say anybody who hasn't been to Sugar Camp in Prestonsburg, Kentucky, please check it out. You won't be disappointed, that's for sure. All right, so going into 2023, you get your first race coming up here in 10 days at Fort Duffield. Now, I've never been there. Is this Enduro a play? Like, is it played off from that Sugar Camp? Did they say, hey, you had a great success there? Or how did that come about?
Yeah, so I started talking to Derek Fector, who is the Kimbo Louisville president, maybe a year and a half ago about a Duffield Enduro. In pre-pandemic, I'd actually met with some of the local non-mountain bikers, but like local people that are kind of over the park about doing like an XC race at Fort Duffield. And so I don't know what it was, maybe 2021, maybe 2022. I forget when ground was broken, but there was a flow line that got added via funds from Kimbo Louisville to the park. And they, if you've seen like a jump line, flow line, that's the one. And we tabled doing the enduro until that trail was like finished off and built and everything like that. And earlier in the year, last year, I don't think there was like a set timeline on like when it would be good, set up and ready to rock and roll. So we was like, let's just go for it for 2023. And Duffield's one of the spots that you can ride in like, spring conditions. There's a lot of trail systems and a lot of flow trails and stuff like that that are peanut butter and just nasty in the spring. Duffield does really well in the wet. So we knew we could put it as one of the early season races and, enjoy it because of that. So, here we are in, March 2023, and we're about to, have this race at Duffield. So it's been an idea on the table for a long time. And we were committed to this, probably in October of last year, in 2022, and, announced it all in, I guess early December or so of 2022, and Open Reg is dead. And yeah, here we are.
Pretty sweet. So you mentioned you're going to have an XC race there as well, right?
Well, we looked at that back a few years ago. Not currently looking at XC there. We may add it down the line. There's another race promoter that's local there that's talking about doing an XC race too, and we may leave that ball in their court. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm also, not putting it on the schedule for this year. I think Duffield's a really good spot for enduro racing and stuff like that. So we may just, on the Bluegrass Cup at least, preserve it for our enduro race weekend and not try to, also do XC with that. Now for Sugar Camp this year, we are doing an XC race plus an enduro race on the same weekend. And it's going to be huge race weekend, all kinds of stuff all weekend from Friday morning on.
So, have you thought about, and I'm just throwing this from the hip, like, hey, you do XC and enduro, you get some kind of lumped in, or do you want to keep them completely separate?
No, so there's something about that. We can mention that maybe later on, not to give any spoilers for the rest of the episode, but yeah, pin that one. I'll mention kind of how that's working this year.
Okay. I just thought about it, like, what if you do both? Like, I don't know.
There's a good incentive to do both. There's a really good incentive to do both.
Okay. I mean, I'm not an XC guy, anymore, but yeah, if there's an incentive, sure, I guess I'll have to get myself into shape or something.
Yeah, well, we have a party lappers category for XC. Just go out there and have fun and, see what your time is, ride with your buddies, do your thing. We have that for enduro too, which is it's been a huge hit so far for the Duffield race. We've got a lot signed up for it. So yeah, there's a spot for everyone, no matter how hard or how easy you're wanting to
go. So you have Fort Duffield, you'll have Prestonburg again, or Sugar Camp. Did you say there's another one too?
Lot enduros for this year. The rest of our events are XC. So we've got 2 enduros and 6 XC or endurance events this year.
And so points, are you going to do points carry over overall, or you're just going to do individual races?
So your enduro points, though, like there's no enduro overall. I don't think that doing a 2-race series is really worth anything. When we get to the 3rd enduro venue, which we've got 2 on the radar for next year's enduro venues. When we get to there, definitely we'll have an enduro series out of it. We do have in XC side of the series. And so we'll be doing that similar to as we did last year. We're changing some of the point structure and everything like that, and that'll all go live on the website before the first race. But yeah, basically the pros are pretty interested in that, and we're trying to break it up to maybe like it'll probably be 3 or 4 categories because of like e-bike and adaptive and a few of the like auxiliary categories that you can't really group to others. Because where we have more races this year, I think that's going to make some of the series things more competitive from people who come and race a lot versus people who don't. So, and you get rewarded for coming and racing a lot because we want to see this stuff grow, and the only way it happens is if you guys show up. So
yeah. Laurel Lake, the backside where you talk about that downhill, and I know it's kind of hard to get to in a sense. Maybe could you include that, or would that be too more kind of off the grid for an enduro?
Man, we could do it. Oh, I don't know how many stages we could get back there though, and I don't know. That'd be sick. Like those trails would be sick. I would almost rather do like an XC stage race there, because I think getting everyone on an enduro bike back there would piss a lot of people off to pedal that much and that hard a trail before any of the stages or getting to the stages.
Yeah.
'Cause that stuff is so spaced out. There's one area that I wish there was a connectivity, and the Forest Service had planned for back in their master plan back forever ago. And they had planned to chopper in a bridge to connect to the bottom of the Narrows Trail and the 401 Trail and all that there, over to a trail that would connect to the B-Rock campground, which as the crow flies is nowhere away. But as you hike or bike, it's like 20 miles because of like you follow back another creek and then come down another way and hit the road. But as the crow flies, and if you're willing to like risk your life coming across like some rapids in a creek, you're there. It is right there. Most people don't realize that because they usually keep them separate on maps to not mislead people also. And so, yeah, they like, and this is what a old timer at the Forest Service told me like 10 years ago, is they wanted to put this like big, nice, like steel bridge with like a trussing system in, and they wanted to chopper it in. And like, it was so deep down in there, and they would have to like rent out like I think it's a Chinook helicopter, like the 2 week ones or whatever. And it's just like, you know, and this was a while ago. And so it just never happened. But some of the maps got printed like as there was a trail there. So that's why these questions have always come up. And if that trail existed and that bridge existed, you could do an epic enduro from B-Rock Campground up and around the Narrows Trail and all stuff. And it would be a riding spot. It would be a riding destination, because some of the trails that are around B-Rock Campground with the right connectivity and stuff would be awesome. But the connectivity is not there. So it's just like leaves the Narrows Trail out in La La Land. But with an XC stage race, you can do some cool stuff because you're inherently going to ride further and do more of that. But
Yeah.
man, that would take me a while to plan out, because that is a jungle back there. People would be getting lost left and right if you didn't like grow up in that area like I did.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun back there. It's kind of hidden. I even talked to somebody who's a avid hiker. I was like, "Hey, you ever hiked Laurel Lake?" And they were like, and I was like, "There's actually a waterfall," and they were like, now they're like, "Where is this? I need to find it." I'm like, oh, "There's some good stuff back there." It's just you just got, it's a little just off the map a little bit, you know. As most people just go down on the roadside and just go down and they see the running creek and then just kind of head back in a sense. But yeah, you get back over there a little more. It's
Yep. There's like 3 waterfalls on the way to Van Hook Falls, the big waterfall in that. And so many people will stop and think it's it, like that's the waterfall. And I guess social media has helped with like, no, that like showing you like this is Van Hook Falls. And so people have like that, oh, I know that's not it. That's not what the photo looks like.
Yeah.
To get to there now. So that's probably helped a good bit. It's also created some overuse situations and like riffraff and, you know, the things that come with too much trail usage and sometimes, you know. But, you know, yeah, it's an awesome area. Like it, you know, if you're looking for one of those like Pisgah-like adventures, look at the National Forest around Laurel Lake and all the stuff that like kind of goes north and a little bit west of like the lake itself. So yeah, there's some good stuff there.
Man, just even the flow stuff around the lake's not even bad. I mean, it's fun. Don't get me wrong, it's not technical, but you're just looking to get some miles. It's fun.
Oh yeah, all day.
So when you are putting on these events, you have to deal with sponsorships. So if you don't mind, kind of take us through the process of even like what you can say or how that goes about getting funding for some of this stuff.
Yeah, so you know, it's one of those weird things, and the business side of things comes along. And so our race series is owned by a marketing company, which gives me a lot of leverage. You know, I'm sitting in my garage right now, and you can see, I guess, 2 banners. Yeah, 2 banners behind me. Those have sponsors on them from previous races, just leftovers, and you know, I hung them up to make the walls less boring and white in here. And my garage is actually where we create a lot of the awards and some of the like materials that we use for race day. You know, I don't know if you can see them. Yeah, you can see the tops. I've started to organize signs and get all my ducks in a row for the races that are coming up. And, you know, when it comes to like sponsorship, you know, a lot of, and this is like from the running race side of things, and that event directors that just host like your weekend 5Ks at the park kind of thing, they just ask for support. You know, they're like, oh, well, this is for blah, blah, blah foundation. give us $100, we're going to have, a bunch of people go run a 5K. And so like a lot of the, I guess you could say, the industry associated with sponsorships and like those companies like banks and, larger corporations that are used to getting that ask, they're not used to the ask that we're presenting them with. So there's a lot of education and a lot of like cold calling and explaining and like being really forward with people about what we're trying to do. And it's not just ask for the like pity check to go do this, because this is a for-profit event. Some of our races have kickbacks to funds like IMBA, and we did some for flood victims last year at Sugar Camp and various things like that. So what you're really doing is you're presenting a partnership with that brand or that company. And what are they getting out of that partnership? Well, we're a year-long series. We have things going on pretty much year-round. Even if we don't have races year-round, we're doing stuff on social media. We're presenting races. We're promoting, things coming up and sponsors and so on and so forth. So giving them an opportunity to like, say, hey, what are your marketing goals this year? We want to help you with that. So it's like, we have one company, and I'm not going to spoil this so it's not like obvious to them, but we have one company that's really trying to push a certain product in their line. Well, we're going to do some direct marketing with that to introduce our racers to that product, because one, we do believe in it and we do like want to have them around. We're not going to pick up a sponsor just because they wanted to give us money and product. We're going to, give you something that we're going to give you an opinion on, and be excited to tell you about it both in person and on social media. So, meeting the sponsors where they're at with their needs is a huge thing that we try to focus on. So, we do that with our bike company products, especially. Now, some of our companies, they're wanting the recognition and they want to kind of pay to play and say, hey, we're sponsoring active outdoor events that are in the cycling and running community, so on and so forth. And then some of the fundraiser races we're doing are like, hey, we know that a large portion of this money goes to that fundraiser, and here we are paying to play. Because at the end of the day, there's still like stuff that I got to print to put on the podium background. There's signs I got to print for the races. There's time I got to take to put them on, all this stuff. So like there's money there for like the service that we're doing. And then oftentimes there's also money there for the charities that we're doing, sponsorship and races for. And then also just I'm not going to say it's a hassle because that sounds bad, but like, when someone sends us 1,000 like pieces of a product, we have to put all those in a bag, and that takes time and energy and storage space and lots of containers from Lowe's and all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of layers. I mean, my whole garage is like, I got a 3-car garage, and it's basically all race stuff and stuff for races. I don't even keep my bikes or anything out here. We have a bike room in the house, and then that's where more race stuff is. That's where we keep all of our awards and all that stuff, because we organize that in our gym. It's just, yeah, it's a maze of race stuff here.
Have you ever had, I'm not going to say issues, but sponsors say, you're like, hey, I'm doing a bike race, where they just kind of think, that's not our thing, we're not interested?
Dude, all the time. I would say 9 times out of 10, I get turned down as far as sponsorship goes. I shoot for the moon on some things, and like I'll ask some pretty big corporations that this is more inconvenient than it is. Like the time it would take those corporations to write us $1,000 sponsorship check isn't even worth replying to the email. Like, but sometimes you get someone on that marketing team that sees that email that loves mountain biking, and they're like, yeah, we'll do this, and it's worth it to them.
Yeah.
Those are the ones with that like big corporate dollar behind them that's worth it. But most of the time when it's a mountain bike company, it's a simple like dollars and cents thing. We approached a handful of companies, and they're like, hey, we're still tight on stuff because pandemic and like slow down in the industry. And we're good right now. It's like, we just can't afford like enough product to help you guys. And then we got some that are like, how much product do you want? We're trying to grow, and we're trying to clear the shelves to make way for new product, and so on and so forth. So it's really different between each company. And, a lot of bike companies don't want to give like straight money. They want to give product, right? Because they want to put products they make in front of this community. In running, it's a lot more common to get like your paid sponsorships for an event promoter in a running race, because that's all about being on the t-shirt for them, and more stuff like that. While in the cycling community, it's like, let me try to strut my stuff as a company over these other companies. And, personally, like, I think it's cool to see companies step up and sponsor races because they definitely don't have to. They don't have to do that, but it's an opportunity for them to place themselves in a grassroots cycling community for, a guy like you that's coming to our races and being like, oh, so-and-so sponsors this race and has gave a lot of product. And then you think about like, man, they've given a lot of product this year. Oh, wow, that's like $5,000 worth of product. Man, that's awesome. $5,000 worth of product to all these racers that didn't have to buy that. They got to race it and they won it and they got to like do the sport that they love and that they're committed to financially and with their time. They got to do more of that because this bike company said, yeah, grassroots racing is great and we want to sponsor that. And here's some product to give to the podiums or just give out individually or whatever the case would be. And they're investing back in the community in a different way because sometimes like that product goes a lot further. Like let's say you get sealant or whatever. Well, that bottle of sealant that you got at a race from getting third on the podium, that could keep you going a lot longer and that could get you out on your bike 3 more times than if you live in a rural area and you don't have a local bike shop or you just don't have the time to go to the bike shop and get sealant in your tires or something like that. So it's a different aspect of like how the industry supports the community. And, those are the things we approach. I mean, if it wasn't for sponsors, we wouldn't be having this race. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Like, do you try to focus when you first start for sponsorships? Hey, I want more of a cycling sponsor. And then where you kind of just like, hey, I'm just going to reach out to a bunch of people and see what happens.
Oh man, it would take me a minute to go through and look at all the emails I've sent since like October of last year. But, I really try to get a lot of cycling sponsors on board for the year-long series because that's protein products. Like hardly any of those guys are writing a check for anything. It's just, hey, what product can you afford to send me? This is how many podiums I expect to try to fill the bags for this year. This is what's up. And I can go into some details about those here in a minute. But that's the thing that like, I want you guys to like, let's say you're spending, $60 on an entry fee to come race this Enduro. Let's say you get on the podium. I want you to have at least $50 worth of stuff in your podium bag for getting on third. I want you to have $100 and some bucks worth of stuff if you get first. I want you to like essentially make money off of this race if you do well at it. I want to incentivize you to keep doing this and keep coming back and have like a carrot hung out in front of you to like, try your best and come enjoy it and have fun. And so, with our running races, we ask for a lot of local sponsorships for that stuff because, I host a lot of local races here in Campbellsville and, we have sponsors that the families of like the restaurant or, the law practice or the real estate agency or all these small like local businesses that do sponsor our races. Well, they're coming as a family to race our races, whether they're sponsoring or not. So getting them to have like, the family name on the back, that their company is, giving them free entries and giving them that opportunity to like be even more a part of the event than just participation is like game changing for these events because in a small town, participation is one thing, but ownership and like being like, we have this race in our town. It's great when they go tell other runners or their other family members, hey, don't miss the first weekend in April. There's a race here and you guys got to come running with us. And they have that more of that buy-in because of that. That's what we want there. So it's a different approach with sponsorship for those kind of events than it is with our bigger series that's on more of like a regional radar than what's on more of like a hyper regional, like small, like little county radar kind of.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, yeah, I didn't know that it went in depth with sponsorships. That's some good info for sure. Just to see how much you go about, how much you, first off, you're passionate. You're not like, just like, I'll just fork out the money. You're like, hey, I want this race to continue. The only way for that to happen is get sponsors involved.
Yeah. I mean, hey, porta potties, insurance, paying the park if they require a fee, rewards, the timing system that costs tens of thousands of dollars, renting out a timer to come down and help us with the Enduro because I don't have the system to do it Enduro. I use Ben from West Virginia to do that. Like, this stuff adds up. And the more people there are, the more it costs. So, like, if there's not sponsors playing the game with us, these races don't happen because, I mean, I'm completely like transparent about this, and we have it on our website. Like, we're a for-profit company. I try to make money off my races. I want to do this as a full-time thing, and like I want to, I work in the cycling industry, but I want racing to be like even more of like my, like, I guess my retirement fund going forward. Like, I would love to create some races that are so successful that like we have that in Kentucky, and that like I can hire some people. Like, that's my main thing, is like I want to be able to grow enough to where we can hire some people to like help me take this to another level. And so there's got to be money in the bank for that. I can't just break even on every race or lose money on every race. We gotta do it right.
Yeah. I will say, like, going back to the podium, and you say all these are the gifts from the sponsors. I'll say the ones that, and no offense to these people, but like that aren't bike related, you're like, oh, this is cool. But then when it's like a bike part, or like even like a gel or some tire seal, you're like, oh heck yeah, I'll use this. And yeah, it's like, you feel it a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's it, man. Like, some of the like novelty stuff that you get at a race, it could be like funny and quirky and like, oh, that's cute and funny. Like, my wife did a half marathon in November of last year, and it was the like Colonel Sanders half marathon. It was a road marathon in Corbin, Kentucky, which is where the first KFC was. This is close to my hometown of London.
Yeah.
And there was some funny stuff just because it had like fried chicken and Colonel Sanders like on a sweatband, and you're like, that's hilarious. I'm okay with getting this because I got it for free as part of the race entry fee and whatnot. And you're like, I would never buy this probably, but this is funny because of what it is and it's commemorative and so on. And so like some of that useless stuff is cool in those situations, but on an everyday basis, like I've tried to tell my like my sponsors and like the people wanting to throw stuff in bags, like, I don't think we need that, and that. Like, one of the things we're doing this year, and I'll go ahead and tell it, is I'm trying to work with a real estate agent in almost every town that has like marketable real estate to an outdoors person. I want to show someone who wants to buy an Airbnb or wants to move what's going on in that town as far as the real estate market goes. Like, could you see yourself living here? You love these trails. Do you want to move here? Because it's a thing on a lot of our radar, and a lot of people are doing remote work now or looking for remote jobs. So they can go and live in these low cost of living towns. And, I'm sure they have questions, right? Well, their real estate agent is who can do that and, reflect the community a little bit more for that person that's looking to move to Prestonsburg, looking to move to Hazard, looking to move to Campbellsville. We have trails and lakes and all kinds of fun stuff here. And it's just like, those are things that, like, yeah, you might not be interested whatsoever, but you need to know the option. And it's really good to have that connection because even at the end of the day, if you're not wanting to move to, a small town in Kentucky or relocate or anything like that, seeing that there's people that are supportive, that are business owners in these towns that are putting a lot of effort into letting you know how great these towns are goes a long way when it stacks up the chain for when they're at a city council meeting saying, yo, I did this for the mountain bike race or the running race this year in this town, and we got a lot of interest and a lot of people asked me questions about this, and these were the concerns that they had. And so then it comes back around full circle for that city and that town to know, like, hey, a lot of people are concerned about outside of town, like, we don't have this, and this in place. We should look at that, for the next fiscal year and like as we grow and stuff. So like, in a very like weird, like tangent kind of way, that stuff creates better mountain biking, trail running, outdoor situations for us as the community. So believe it or not, like, we do a lot of that behind the scenes that you guys will never have a clue of. All of the surveys and stuff that we do as, post-race survey, that's insanely helpful for all of these towns to know the impact that the mountain bike community has on those towns. And, they see dollar signs from the tax revenue, which usually means dollar signs going to trails and parks and stuff like that, which is what we want to see. So that stuff's helpful, and you guys have to play ball with us on that stuff because it goes a long, long way.
Yeah, I don't. That's a great point. Yeah, so do your post race survey for sure. Help these communities grow so we have more places for races, and not even just races, just go there and ride, make it a destination type thing, which is awesome for the state of Kentucky, where I'm also from, or live, I should say now. And so yeah, it's cool that you have a group, but in a sense, you're kind of leading this group to have this. So very much appreciated to have that. Um, so, do you want to talk about a new role you're kind of going into coming up?
Yeah, so I've taken a sales role, basically a territory manager for Kentucky and Tennessee with KHS Bicycles. So if you're not in the bike industry, like as a shop employee or as someone that's been around it for a while, you may or may not know KHS. Of course, we make bicycles, but we also are a massive parts distributor for bike shops all across the country. We got a warehouse in Louisville. We have a warehouse in Southern California. And so, we can stock a shop to get you open selling bikes and everything you're going to need to replace those parts on the bike, put tires, tubes, chains, the whole 9 yards. We're a massive supplier for Shimano, which is a series sponsor, a very dedicated series sponsor of ours. And yeah, so I'm working with a lot of shops in Kentucky and Tennessee to help them grow. I've been around the industry enough now to where I know more than I should. Honestly, it makes me like overthink a lot of stuff within our sport sometimes. But my goal is to help shops know what products we have, introduce them to new products, and find them affordable and effective ways to help the cycling community in their areas as best as possible, and make more money for them, and of course help KHS be more financially successful. So yeah, it's a great role. Obviously, I mean, because you can see I can be long-winded about all of this stuff. I can talk to people about bikes all day long. From the mechanical side, I do know a good part from my experience as a mechanic for a few years on a pretty national and world level. And with what we're doing, and I mean, Kentucky, like, there's no shame about it. Kentucky is one of the not as ritzy towns or not as ritzy states in the in the lower 48 here. It's no secret. The KHS offers some extremely competitive rates on bicycles and our parts as well. And we have a lot of deals as far as like discounts and long terms and like all these great things that a lot of other companies aren't doing as far as suppliers go. So we're trying to help people the best we can and deliver great products that we stand behind as a company, and just help grow this sport that we love. And it's awesome. If you don't know, it's a small brand. The owner like sends an email about every day or something, and you can hit him up as a sales rep or anyone in the company, and there's not like 15 doors to walk through to get to talk to the top dog. You can hit Win up no problem, and I love that. The door's wide open at KHS to talk to anyone in the company about anything. And it's great because when you listen to these people that have been in the sport or like working in the industry for 40 some years, maybe they're not the coolest guy in the sport right now or the coolest CEO or anything like that, but they know so much about what we're doing. They forgot more than what most of us will ever know. And it's a great crowd to be around.
Yeah. So for KHS, is it go to find everything out at khs.com? That's the best way to find it.
Well, yeah, if you want to see our catalog, khsbicycles.com, you'll see the full lineup on there. We're still waiting on a lot of containers to come over. We own multiple manufacturing facilities overseas. And we're waiting on some bikes. Some bikes are in stock. We're not direct to consumer though, so you cannot buy off there. You got to buy from your local shop. Tons of shops in Louisville. We've got some shops in Lexington, shops all through Tennessee, shops in Western Kentucky. We're in a lot of places. Even if you don't see us on the floor, a lot of shops have us as an account to order bikes as needed. So we're there. We're a smaller brand. We know our place in the industry. We're not trying to be Trek or Specialized. So it's a whole different can of worms to get into. But yeah, KHS Bicycles. If you're a shop that is interested in being a distributor for any of the parts we carry, shoot me an email, find me on Bluegrass Cup stuff. It's not hard, and I'll get you linked into like my business side of all that stuff. Because we have tons of stuff in stock right now. Like, we're one of the biggest stockers of Shimano parts right now. We're getting more containers of them in every week. And that's huge. I mean, we get orders every single day for stuff that people are in need of to get bikes out the door for spring riding. So we're here to help if you need us.
If I wanted to buy a KHS complete bike for mountain biking, what would you recommend?
Knowing what you ride, man, you got to get on the 6600. Yeah. So that's the full carbon 150 Enduro trail bike. It's 150 front, 135 rear, carbon front and rear triangle. Um, 4 pistons brakes, Fox suspension, dropper post, of course, one by. It's where you want to be. SLX 12 speed.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a good setup.
Yeah, that's a good setup. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. Comes in a 5200, I believe, roughly, maybe 53. It's somewhere right in that range. So,
Is there any talks? I kind of new with the company of e-bikes down the road.
oh yeah, we've got e-bikes. We're waiting on a massive shipment of them. I mean, there's only a couple. Like we've got like some like commuter town e-bikes in stock that shops can order and shops have on the floor. But like our mountain bikes, we've got a full suspension e-bikes on on the lineup. I think we're waiting on some parts for those before they can be released. Because everyone and their brother is trying to make new e-bikes, so you have to wait around for some of the newer technologies because the orders from, every manufacturer right now for e-bikes is about as high as any other type of bike for most companies. So yeah, I'm waiting for those to hit because I'm probably going to pull the trigger on one. There's a few options too that are good. Like, I don't know if I want like a fat bike hardtail e-bike for marking the course. So I can like put a massive basket on the back and just like zip through the woods and bounce over everything and like use it as like a service e-bike, or if I want to get like a full suspension e-bike. I mean, I've rode tons of e-bikes, full suspension and not, and there's definitely like a fun factor to a normal like full suspension e-bike, but like the utility of an e-bike also, and like my local horse trails here, like I don't want to ride those on an acoustic bike. I don't want to go pedal those. They're just a mess. I want to, ride a dirt bike on them. I wish I could. I wish it was legal. Like I've thought about taking the pitter like down the road and dropping in on them, but I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
So this fat tire hardtail e-bike that we have, these Enduro 1000, I'm like, man, that could be really, really fun on these horse trails that I completely stay away from on my mountain bike because they're still mountain bike legal. It's just we don't go to that side of Green River Lake State Park. We stay on the mountain bike side.
Yeah.
So, e-bikes are fun. Don't hate on e-bikes. They're, some people need them like to assess the sport and like enjoy this thing that we love as mountain bikes. Some people need them. Some people aren't motivated unless they have an e-bike. And then at the same time, I love my trail bike. Don't get me wrong, but I love an e-bike. Like there's some days and I'm like, if I had an e-bike, I'd go riding today, but I don't feel like going and riding today because, I just don't have it in me. And it's, no shame on e-bike. I love them.
They're taking over. Do you think it's going to be okay? We'll say these numbers are false numbers. So we'll say it's 70% acoustic, 30% e-bike. Do you think that ever flips? Not that high, or maybe 60-40?
Man, that's hard to say. Like the question is the novelty of having an e-bike going to wear off? Like, are we going to get bored of them in the sense to where they would be that big going to wear off?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, because I think it adds to the user group and the accessibility. And I think more people will find the sport accessible with an e-bike, which I think and more people will just, grow into wanting an e-bike. And so I think that's going to drive the e-bike number more and more up the trend. So yeah, and I mean, I'm here for it. Like, dude, there's nothing wrong with rocking an e-bike. Like, it's another bicycle. It's got 2 wheels. It just goes faster with less effort. That's the only difference.
I have a buddy he likes e-bikes, has his own, but then he doesn't. A little bit of it was like, I like e-bikes, but then if you throw an e-bike on with electric shift and you Fox Live, and say some kid or some guy who has, unlimited cash, like, yeah, mountain bike, and you're like, no, you don't know anything. Like you've got it's all for you. Like he's worried that's where we're gonna go.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, like automatic everything, right? Yeah, you might not know much about it then at that point. You might not understand low speed and high speed rebound. You might not understand low speed and high speed compression. You might not understand all of that stuff, which takes away from like one aspect of the sport. But like, at the same time to say that and like argumentative factor, like I don't know anything about like, I mean, it's not hard to figure out, but like, let's say like, I don't know the origins and the models of friction shifters from the 80s on road bikes.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't care. They had their phase. I don't know which one came out first. I don't know who had the cutting edge one. And I don't know who really perfected it and when it changed the game. Like, Fox Live Valve did or Shimano Di2 did, like when that stuff came out. Like those were the first two electronic versions of those products. Like, I don't know who the best friction shifter was, when it came out. And I do not care. So 40 years from now, this 25-year-old kid that's ripping a fully electronic everything, and you tell them, well, blah, blah, blah about this, that, and the other, and like, this is when the charger damper came out or something like that. They're going to be like, I could care less.
Yeah.
And off they go, so I totally get that argument though. I mean, anything that turns electronic, the whole idea of it being electronic is to make it easier for us. So,
yeah, you go. I meant to ask, you might have said this earlier, are you having an e-bike class for Fort Duffield?
Oh yeah, we got a handful sign up. Yeah, we've got e-bike classes at pretty much every event. We've been going back and forth with how to do that at our 12-hour endurance race because batteries. And a lot of people want a lot of different things. And we think we've come to a conclusion on it. Still trying to run around the table on that some more, but we've got time to figure that out. That race is in mid-August, so we're waiting to kind of see like what might work best for that. But LBL does not have an e-bike category. That's National Forest, and that's a no-go for e-bikes. Every other event though has an e-bike. So hey, if you got an e-bike, come race with us. We got XC events for you, and we've got enduro events for you.
Yeah,
hope to see more and more of it. I mean, it's awesome. I love to see it.
Going forward, is there places that you said, you want to try to get 3 or 4 on the next year? Are these places already existing, or are those trails still need to be made?
Yeah, no, it's not going to be like a bike park like Rock Creek just popping up out of like a 4-month idea,
Yeah,
out in nationals of the next year, crazy how off to, Nico and Dave and Callie and all the crew down there. Like, holy moly, like, good job. But yeah, dude, I don't want to speak for them because I don't want to get anyone's hopes up and then it not be that. But there's 2 trail systems that are like, man, we're so close to these being like a good enduro spot. And so I think after a few more trails get built, which is a normal thing for these places to add trails, I think that we'll be there. One of them is more of a flow option, a lot of machine built stuff. The other one is a lot of machine built stuff, but it doesn't feel like machine built stuff. And they're open to having some like cooler technical stuff. So as are all the hints I'll get, we'll see. And then there's some other stuff that I've heard that's on the radar that don't even have trails yet, but they're looking at trying to get trails, and those could open up. Who knows? You never know. I mean, some trail builders come in there and knock this stuff out in 3 or 4 weeks, and you got a full trail system built, and it changes the game. And then some places, they're slow growing, so we'll see. But I really, really hope that we have 3 venues next year for an enduro. If not, we might just have to do 2 at Sugar Camp because there's so many trails there. We can definitely do that.
Yeah. That's what someone always asked me after I did it. They're like, how many trails are there? I'll be honest, I never really went back and looked at a map or saw, but I was like, I think there's more than just what we raced for sure. And then I ended up getting on. I was like, oh, yeah, there's plenty more.
There's plenty more. We wanted to keep it like, I'm not going to say easy, but we didn't want to overdo it with the first race there this past year. And we also didn't want to like deal with some like crisscrossing issues and stuff like that. Enough time down the road, anything's possible at Sugar Camp. So if we needed to do 2 routes there and even build like a flyover or something, and we have other venues that we've talked about doing a flyover to make like more raceable situations. Like it's not off the table for those venues.
With Sugar Camp, is there, I guess, actually for both places, is there, for Fort Duffield, is there a bike shop local there? Is there bike shops near that area?
So Duffield has a ton of shops local, some in like Radcliffe, Fort Knox area, but then Kimball Louisville is the big supporter of that race, and we're kicking funds back to them for this to keep building more trail at Duffield. And there's a lot of shops from there that's involved with what we're doing. Um, I mean, probably like 30 shops in Louisville. It's crazy. But there's a handful that have stepped up to do some podium prizes and stuff like that, and we'll be giving them some credit at the race. Um, Basically I think, Hazard and Prestonsburg. So Prestonsburg has a shop. It's not super mountain bike focused. It's mostly road and like commuter bike focused, but they have like chains and stuff to get you going if you have something go wrong. Hazard does not have a shop yet. The trail builder is the shop there. His garage is the shop, you know? And then like a guy named Kenny, he's a local mountain bike guy there. I guess his garage is also a shop. Those guys are like the local person that everyone else like hangs out and knows to ask about stuff. But man, I think all the others, like there's Wooden Wave and Grand Rivers, there's the Spoke Easy in Campbellsville. There's Summer Cycle over in Somerset. 12 Hours Capital View. What? I guess there's not a shop anymore in Frankfurt. I guess that's mostly Lexington, Louisville is about equal distance from there, but most towns have a shop. So.
Yeah. At one, in some aspect. Did you ever ride a place in Lexington? I never rode there, but I heard it's pretty gnarly, called Snake or something.
In Lexington?
Yeah, I'll have to text you and find it. I think it was on private property, but I think they call it Snake or Snake something.
Well, I need to know about this. I love some good private trails.
Well, I think it's closed now.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, I missed the point on that. Whose it was.
When I find out, I'll send it to you. But yeah, it was in Lexington, and I think I know it was private because someone said you had at the gate or whatever, you had to sign the waiver before you went back.
Oh, nice. Yeah, those are always good. My buddy Matt, he's one of my close friends. He used to have a family farm over here that had awesome trails on it, tons and tons of miles. We had Berlin with the pit bike, and that would be the trail kind of thing, and built some features here and there with the tractors and so on. And I mean, just endless fun trails. And we would let 3 of them grow up one year and then build 3 more the next year. It's always changing, but that was a family farm, and family decided to let go of it because it's a very, very valuable piece of land, like 300 acres by the river, rolling hills, great. So it was a good sell off at the right time. But man, I miss those trails. So
yeah,
something about private trails that only you and your buddies get to ride and get to build and have a piece of. There's nothing better.
Yeah, there's a buddy's got some land near my parents, and we built one trail, and we always let's build another, and we just never get back around to it. But yeah, just being out there and doing the handwork, you're like, this is gonna be sweet. It's kind of eroded a little bit over time. It's not bad. It needs a little work, but yeah, because it's got a nice elevation to it. It just needs at least some time and effort to it.
Yeah.
So I know one thing that you watch. It's kind of off the thing. You watch some Supercross. So what do you think? What do you think of first off? What do you think of Indy? Kenny winning it? How do you think the season's going?
Man. Well, so when Tomac came out of the gate at the beginning of the season, I was like, he's just going everything, and he's definitely got rattled and slowed down since then. So I like Tomac. I like to see someone on top of the game like that. So yeah. A little bit of a bummer. But watching Kenny win in Indy, man, so this is what was terrible. And I was texting you about it because you were there, and I was having FOMO all weekend because I had 50 buddies there and a few hours away. But I was like, man, the coverage is so good on TV. Do I need to be there?
It's hard to be there when you have that coverage.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, it's kind of like a World Cup. The World Cup coverage is really good, and it'll probably be really good for Discovery too. So yeah, but dude, so since the windstorms hit Kentucky, our internet has flickered like crazy. It's just across town. They're still working on everything. We have power and we have internet enough, but it'll go down randomly, and it's been doing it all day. I'm surprised we got through this, honestly, knock on wood. But the last lap So Barsha was like closing the gap like those last 4 or 5 laps by a second, like each lap. And I'm like, dude, Kenny's going to lose it here. And man, like halfway through the last lap, and it was like, I mean, Barsha was like half a corner back on him at this point. They had like 2 or 3 straights to go. Entered it, like splits out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like what in the world is going on? So I'm just like I'm getting on your profile. I'm getting on like everybody's profile. And when I turned over and looked at LJ, I was like, all right, I think I'll kickstart Kenny won because Justin just posted a video of him like hugging his mechanics and stuff. And I was like, that's a good sign that he kept it because I couldn't find it. And here's the thing, like when the broadcast, like by the time the internet got like back to where the Peacock and all that stuff was working, like
Yeah, good point.
replay it for a day or so. Like it waits till like the next day to like redo the restart. I'm not sure if they go back through and edit stuff and like chop it up and speed it up or anything like that, but like you can't just play it back. Like it's gone. And so I'm like searching this stuff and I was like, all right, it's like I know who won. I was gonna be upset if Marshall won. I'm not a huge fan of him, but I wanted to see old kickstart Kenny on what a lot of people has been arguing, like a super outdated rig from 2009 or whatever, out there with the big boys. It proves one that the bike's not everything and the rider's a lot, but it also proves that some of the stuff that you're considering as far as like what makes you fast is BS. And at the end of the day, those fast guys are fast.
Yeah, it was loud there, man. Because like when it got down to the final lap, even like I'd say 3/4 to a half of that last lap, I was like, this place is gonna erupt.
Yeah,
And for sure it did. And it was cool to see Kenny. It was cool to see. I mean, you lost power. All these competitors came around and hugged him. It was pretty sick. And I thought, and I wonder if you're on the Justin Barsha, how he rides, he'll put a wheel out there.
dude, he will.
And everyone thought he was going to put a wheel, and he didn't. He rode clean. I don't think he wasn't quite there.
I was gonna say I don't think the track would allow for it like normal. Like if you were gonna do like a Barsha move, if you want to coin that on there, like it would be pretty risky to like make it stick with like a tacky track, a lot of deep ruts getting in there. Like I mean, peg dragging out of a corner and stuff like that. Like it's kind of hard to like gamble with it and not lose the podium because of a mistake like that. So
yeah,
I'm glad he didn't though. I'm glad that he raced clean. And I think most people are more of a Ken fan than most people are a Barsha fan. So yeah, that was good to see.
a lot of people, they're not discrediting Kenny, but they were saying due to the way the track was, that it kind of, in a sense, like no one was really passing. It was kind of go path or whatever. That, not gonna say he got lucky, but it was just kind of set up for him in a sense from the start.
Yeah. At the same time, though, like he hit lap traffic like halfway into the race, right? And with the conditions that it was, like when you're the first guy, when you're in first and you have the lead and you start hitting lap traffic heavy on or early on, you're at the disadvantage. Because you're the first guy that comes up for like, the lap flag. You're the first rider that rider in front of you is getting lapped by. So they might not be to the side of the course yet. They might be halfway down the whoops and they're committed to their rut and they don't know that you're back there until they get to the flagger. And then ride it out. But if you're, Kenny, who's in the lead and who's putting seconds into everybody and having the fastest, you're having to break up for him while Barsha's got the open road, Yeah. And I think there's a disadvantage to like a situation like this. I think it's easier to lose or easier to let it slip away just from the bad luck of lap traffic. Instead of playing the cat and mouse game where you're just slightly behind, had Barsha had like a 4-second gap at like 10 laps to go instead of a 6, I think you would have got him, no doubt.
Yeah. I like Chase Sexton. Man, I feel for him every week.
Oh, the peg drag crash.
The which one?
Did he? Yeah, he peg dragged out of the corner or run and crashed, right? Yeah.
That was pretty close to me, but it's just every week that he's crashing. Every week.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like James Stewart's, man. Checkers or wreckers. I feel like that was half of James Stewart career when he was racing, is that he would go down or he would be in the mix.
Yeah. And come back, He's like, I'm not vibing this. I'm just gonna get around it, move on.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to outdoor season and stuff too, though, Tomac's one of those dudes that race year round. This is March. He's got so many more months of likely wins to come. Like, I think he knows that. If you win the first two Supercross, you're going to try to win the third. That's for sure. But if that don't happen and you're not going to sweep every race, well, you got a long term goal. So
Yeah. Supposedly, his family's way they do things is so calculated to where it's like, yeah, we're not gonna push it. We'll get back next week.
okay, that's what it takes, man.
Uh, all right. So Supercross, yeah. Hey, if you go to Nashville, let me know. Uh,
Yeah, get me in the pit.
I have a ticket lady. I almost don't want to let it out, but yeah, I got a ticket lady. So just let me know. I don't know if I'm going to Nashville. I'm gonna try to go either Nashville or Atlanta. Atlanta's outdoors, so one or the other. But yeah, let me know. I'll reach out to her.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, Nashville's not that far. I just haven't considered it yet. I've got so much other stuff going on. I haven't overbooked my calendar, or at least I'm trying not to.
So it's at the Titan Stadium too. I thought it would be like at the hockey stadium. It's at the outdoor stadium.
Yeah, Titan Stadium's big. It's right downtown. Yeah, it's a good spot for it to be at.
Yeah. All right. So do a little World Cup talk. A little. We won't dive into it too much. Guess it's not too far around the corner. What are you thinking?
All these things I want to say is I'm putting Jackson Goldstone on my first fantasy team. After watching Hardline, he's going on my fantasy team first round. Aside from that, we still have a bit of time. Season's starting kind of later in the year than normal. Team announcements were pretty late in the year. Discovery's changing some things up. Enduro's in, so I mean, there's rumor that Sam Hill's going to race a downhill bike, like all this stuff. So I think it'll be exciting as far as like a spectator goes this year, and like a screen spectator of the sport this year. But man, it's still so far away. I don't want to say so and so's looking really good because it'll jinx them. I just know Jackson is the biggest standout that I think is going to make a huge change this season. I would be really surprised if, I mean, who knows? Like, knock on wood, you can get hurt, nerves can get to you, things can change. I mean, he's still young. But I think he's going to come out swinging, and I think that's going to put another person in the mix every single weekend that he's healthy.
I will say, if you kind of look at the contenders every year, like Luick and Hirion, it gets more mental than it is physical, I think. From things. Yeah. So those guys, and they're mentally so strong.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like your head will beat you at a race every time. Like, so many of those guys are capable of winning. It's just whoever doesn't let the demons beat them up throughout the race week. Whoever can stay on top of that, they're taking home the trophy.
Have they announced announcers yet? Sounds weird.
You know what?
Yes.
No, because Rob's not there. Man, I want to feel like I listened to Downtown Podcast or something that they mentioned it, but I was like half occupied while I did, and I'm sure that they talked about it there somewhat or gave some hints to it, but not ringing a bell. Yeah.
Nobody known, or is it? Yeah, I don't know.
I would say it's someone we know. I'd be surprised if not. Like, it's probably like, I don't know if Claudio stayed around with Red Bull or not. I'm not sure. Yeah. I would be surprised if there was like, I mean, I'll imagine that Discovery is going to keep it similar to what we experienced with Red Bull and change things slowly. There'll probably be some big changes at first, but I don't think like Red Bull did such a good job. I think it'd be crazy to like get super far away from that.
Yeah, that's
what we know is viewing the sports. It's going to be like the difference between Fox hosting the Super Bowl one year and ABC hosting it the next year.
Yeah,
commentators may be different because of the contracts and the pregame show and the interviews, and some of that stuff's different. But all in all, it's the same thing.
Yeah. I was thinking it'd be I think of his name. He filled in for Claudio.
Elliot?
Yeah, Elliot.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Red Bull put a lot into him to bring him, like, they put him through the school, they put him through all their like stuff that they do with broadcasters.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know if he's going to leave that or not, because he's been doing some good stuff with them, like not just downhill. I'm pretty sure he's done some more like behind the scenes. Like I think he's the guy that's kind of like walking around the pits and like talking to riders and getting some feedback that go into the notes into the broadcast. Tracy does the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, and that makes a big difference. So maybe they will still do that. Maybe that's something that will get carried over, but I don't know. We'll see. There's a lot of mountain biking events going on that Red Bull still hosts, so there's plenty of opportunity for them to stay on the mic. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, thanks for the time. Good catching up with you. I'll see you here in what, 10 days? I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. There's only one thing we didn't get to about the series that we should get to there.
Yeah.
So if you listened all the way, good job. You scrubbed to the end. Shame on you. So KHS is our title sponsor this year for the series. They're sponsoring all of our events. We've also got Chargio, which is a energy like drink thing. It's hard to describe. It's like a big goo kind of on board. They're making an awesome product. Finish Line is back on board again with product for lubes and tire sealant and cleaners and all that stuff. Shimano's on board with tons of product. Schwalbe's on board for tires. And then we have West 6 and ARH is sponsors as well. West 6 will be at some events, and ARH is a big supporter of our Eastern Kentucky events where they have hospitals. The big thing that's exciting, super, super, super exciting about all of this is that we're giving away a bike via KHS. So we're giving it away at Sugar Camp. We'll give it away on Saturday night. That'll be after the XC and before the Enduro, kind of at our, middle of the weekend shindig hangout party. And yeah, we have a 6600, which is a full carbon trail bike that I talked to you about earlier.
That was set up. That was not set up.
Yeah. It wasn't. That was an organic question. So, and 135 mil in the back. And that's going to go home with someone that races our event. So to qualify to be entered and to win it, it's not whoever takes home the fastest time. It's not whoever races the most or anything like that. It's we're going to announce this to you when we like post some formal things on our website about it. If you like enter X amount of races, and I'm still scratching out those numbers and like, put in an Excel sheet to like figure out what's the most fair and like reasonable situation, but it's like X amount of numbers get you entered. Let's say one more past that gets an extra entry, two more past that gets two more extra entries. So if you do all of them, you're going to have the max amount of entries possible for this bike. And it's not going to be determined off of race results or times or anything like that. You got to do a bare minimum of X amount of races, which we'll release to get entered into the bike, and then you have the chance to add some entries into that. We're going to draw the name out of the hat. And I hope you got room on your bike rack. So
there you
go. It'll be a good time. I mean, this is awesome. When, I reached out to, my boss at KHS, and said, hey, how do we get KHS involved? I didn't know that they'd want to give away a bike, especially not full carbon, ready to race bike. But I'm extremely happy for it. I'm extremely happy to bring this company into the series. And yeah, so if you didn't have an incentive, maybe, a bike that's worth over $5,000 is the incentive. So
yeah, dude, super pumped for you. Will you at Fort Duffield have the bike there to say, hey, this is the bike, but not till Sugar Camp? So people are like, I want that.
Yeah, it'll be on display. We'll have it. Yeah, it's cool. It's built. It's hanging in the bike room right now at my house. Yeah, we're going to be showing it off. Don't try to ride it. We're not going to, want anyone riding it or anything like that, of course. But yeah, it'll be there on probably up on a table or something for you guys to look at, depending on how much space we have and everything. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. And then, not to give too much attention to KHS, but all of our other sponsors, they've stocked our podium bags. So Chargel will be giving away Chargels to dang near everyone that comes to a mountain bike cup this week. I hope the order gets in before Duffield. It's going to be cutting it close, so maybe not that, but the rest of the races you'll be good. And then the Finish Line, Shimano, Schwalbe, everybody else has got products for us galore. So we're excited for that, and yeah, it's going to be a great season. Can't miss it.
I know. So we've talked about this. I'll be at Fort Duffield. Won't be racing because I had a crash and I'm still recovering my tailbones. Still super sensitive. Airplane rides are brutal right now.
Ooh.
But
You're gonna down that just been on.
you what?
You get you one of those like hemorrhoid donuts.
Someone said that. I've heard that a few times.
You just take the raft from under the seat, like your inflatable thing. Just pull that from under the seat and inflate it and sit on it. See what they do. This is gonna make the news. I'll see it. I'll see it in the morning on the news.
Yeah. Blacklisted.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'll be down there. I might do some like video content stuff, whatever, to see how people how the race was. So I'll still be there. Probably won't be racing. I just need to get it fully recovered. That's why I'm always people ask. I've done one of our dirt bike reviews or at Supercross reviews, and someone's like, "Why are you always moving?" I'm like, 'Cause I can't sit still. It hurts so bad.
Yeah, it's got to be a bad one, man. Yeah, I feel for you. I've not had a super bad like tailbone injury or anything like that, so yeah, sorry for you.
Nah, I appreciate it. I sent a picture to Huff. He goes, "Yeah, it's brutal. That looks like it's painful." Because like basically from half my back down was black and blue, even just all the way down.
Dang, dude, that's pretty rough.
Yeah, but hey, thanks.
Big wops.
What?
You have that on big jobs.
I know. That's where I've never looped out. So that was my first loop out to flat, and that hurt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, thanks for the time. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you here in about 10 days. And I'm glad you're building up the Kentucky not only enduro scene, but the whole mountain bike scene. Hope it just grows and grows and grows, and it makes, you know, more people kind of just flood in. I will say with the Prestonburg one, since that was the first one, how many locals do you know? How many did you have? Do you know?
We had a handful, maybe 10 off the top of my head. Like there's a riding scene over there. There's a handful of guys that ride. Some guys don't want to race. They're just worried about that. They just want to ride. They're not racers. I get it.
Yeah.
But I mean, a local took home the trophy. He's the one that won pro. So the dude rips. Tyler. I don't think he's coming to Duffield, but I wish he would just to add some competition to everybody.
Yeah.
Add another fast guy to the mix. But yeah, there's some good locals over there, and it's growing mountain bike community. It's pretty awesome.
And it sometimes has some good hero dirt. Just so people.
Oh yeah. After a nice little mountain shower comes through, that place can't be beat.
No. But all right, Josh, thanks a lot, and I'll see you soon, man.
All right, cheers.